What's your dirtiest secret or confession that you need to get off your chest? Story 1. My wife's sister and her husband got into a huge fight because her husband had been cheating with her. So she came over to stay with us for a few days. One evening we invited our next-door neighbors for a BBQ night in my backyard, and we all got lit. My wife's sister also joined in and drank with us. It had been pretty late at night, so I went upstairs to get ready for bed. My wife was already wasted and passed out in bed. She can't handle too much alcohol. I peeked through the window to see if they were still down there, and I saw my neighbor and sister-in-law were still drinking and hitting it off. One thing led to another, and the next thing I know, the neighbor had her Scooby-Doo style over on the picnic table. They must have forgotten that they were outside and were being pretty loud. I watched them from upstairs and couldn't help myself. The sight of them getting hot and heavy made me gasp for air. So I furiously soloed off to them. It was 2:30 a.m., so the neighbor kept looking around as they were being loud, and then saw me in my window, with my shoulders shaking and head booping. But I didn't stop. I kept polishing the old joystick until I exploded with the biggest O. It's safe to say that as much as I had fun watching them jumping like wild monkeys, it was quite awkward the next day. Before we continue, do us a quick favor, smash that like button and subscribe to support our channel. Story 2. Back in our 20s, my then girlfriend, now wife, and I were pretty adventurous. One of our favorite things was doing it in the car at night in public parks. One evening, we were in the back seat, caught up in the moment, and didn't notice another car had pulled into the spot right next to us. Eventually, I realized it was another couple, Jake and Paula, who just so happened to be doing the exact same thing. I was a bit preoccupied to care at first, but at one point, we all made eye contact and just started laughing, but no one stopped, and we ended up watching each other in our back seats, while my girlfriend was taking the lead, and they were doing Scooby-Doo style. I can't remember who suggested it first, but at some point the idea came up that the guys should switch cars. Everyone seemed into it, so I went over to Paula's car, and he headed to mine. Things continued like that for about an hour. Afterward, we exchanged numbers, started hanging out more casually, and ended up having a few more fun get-togethers that year. We stayed in touch through social media, and when I decided to propose to my wife about 6 months after our last time together as a group, we actually told Jake and Paula first. That's when they surprised us by saying they had just gotten engaged the week before, but hadn't announced it yet. We were all so close that we ended up asking each other to be our best man and maid of honor. Our weddings ended up being just 2 months apart. And let's just say we were part of each other's honeymoon celebrations as well. Each couple had their own special moment, but it didn't take long for the other pair to join the festivities later that night. It's been 6 years since we got married, and now we have 2 kids, while Jake and Paula have one on the way. Though our group moments are a bit less frequent these days, they still happen from time to time. Interestingly, I've even gone on a few solo dates with Paula, and Jake spent evenings with my wife when I've had to work late. I guess you could say we've grown into a kind of polyamorous family. Whatever label fits, it's pretty amazing how 2 couples evolved into such a close connected fourscore. Story 3. I've been seeing my neighbor, who also happens to be a massage therapist. It all started when I pulled a muscle in my back and booked my first ever massage with her. Everything began normally and honestly felt amazing. Partway through, she stepped out for a moment, and when she returned, her touch felt different. More playful, like she was testing boundaries. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe I was imagining it. Then she asked me to turn over, and when I did, I was shocked. She was wearing lingerie. She just laughed and kept going, the massage becoming even more personal. Eventually, she pulled the blanket back and asked if I wanted to have some fun. I said yes, and the rest, well, you can probably guess. When it was all over, I still paid her for the session and headed out. I have been seeing her on the regular for over a year now. Sometimes we skip the massage, but we never skip the banging part. It's been great fun. Story 4. I exchanged personal favors with my boss in hopes of earning promotions, pay raises, and other benefits. I'm a man. This happened shortly after I graduated college. When I was 23, I landed the job through family connections. My boss was also a man, roughly 15 years my senior. At first, it was just playing golf on weekends with him and some work friends. Then we started going to games or bars together. just the two of us. One day he made a move on me, and I didn't stop him. Over time, things progressed to me, giving him blowies fairly often. Sometimes even at work, he seemed to have a thing for it happening under his desk, and other times when he took me out. I'm bisexual, but I never found him particularly attractive. He was a bit above average in size, but that didn't really impress me. He enjoyed giving me blowy as well, though he much preferred when I was the one servicing him. In return, I received 2 promotions within 4 months, 3 pay raises, and had a lot of freedom at work. I could take extended lunch breaks or come in late whenever I wanted. Eventually, people started to notice the special treatment I was getting. No one confronted me directly, but I caught wind of the rumors circulating behind my back. Apparently, my boss had quite the reputation for this kind of behavior. Eventually, I left that job for a higher-paying role at a different company and haven't repeated those actions since. My wife knows about it. We weren't together at the time and doesn't really mind. She even used to tease me by calling me an office slut back when I still worked there. I don't really feel guilty about it. I know it wasn't exactly the most ethical way to get ahead of my coworkers, but it was a smart career move. Even now, I can put him down as a reference and get nothing but glowing feedback on my work. Story 5. My mother-in-law and I have been involved in an emotional affair for the past 2 years. I'll start by saying the initial infatuation was completely one-sided. I've been married for 16 years and never thought of my mother-in-law in that way. In fact, I found her pretty annoying, and apparently she felt the same about me. Then my work relocated us to her town, so we ended up in the same city and started helping each other out with things like painting a room or fixing stuff around the house. Neither of us was really looking for the other. But as I spent more time with her, I began to see a different side and eventually found myself attracted to her. It didn't really hit me until I had a dream about her. At this point, I should provide some backstory. My father-in-law, her husband, has been bedridden for 7 years and his overall health is poor. I'm married to her daughter, of course, but our relationship hasn't been good for quite some time. Without going into too much detail, I can't leave just yet, at least not until our children are out of the house. Now back to my mother-in-law and me. As we spent time together, I realized she was dealing with many of the same struggles with her husband that I'm facing with my wife. Unfortunately, my father-in-law became ill just as her children were becoming adults, and she chose to stay with him through it all. In short, she's been unhappy in her marriage far longer than he's been bedridden. During our time together, we both opened up and shared the challenges we're facing. We grew close and began to trust each other. One November night, while we were hanging Christmas lights around her house, I made the first move. She climbed up on a ladder, and I supported her by holding onto her backside so she wouldn't fall. She didn't say a word or pull away, and the rush I felt was electrifying. Sure, I'm a grown man and have touched someone's buns before, but doing it with her felt different. It was a new experience. When I got home that night, I wasn't quite sure how to process it. Nothing changed between us after that, but I retreated into myself and tried to push those thoughts aside. Around that time, she and I had started meeting regularly for Saturday breakfast, and my behavior didn't affect that. The following weekend, we greeted each other like usual. A few weeks passed, and I thought I had moved on, until one night at a work dinner event, after a few shots of liquid courage, I messaged her around midnight to see what she was up to. She replied with a few jokes I can't quite remember, but the upshot is that I ended up at her house. I wasn't drunk, just buzzed enough to flirt my way into convincing her to come outside and meet me. She was happy to see me when I pulled up, climbed into my truck, and we chatted about my night for a bit. Then she got a call from my father-in-law, asking about some security sensors going off. She told him I had stopped by and that she'd be in shortly. After hanging up, she invited me inside so I could catch her up properly. I went inside and spoke with my father-in-law, apologizing for the late visit. He said it was no problem, and we chatted for a few minutes before he went back to sleep. Meanwhile, she and I finished our conversation in the living room. During our talk about my night, she congratulated me on my recent promotion and said she wished she could have come out to celebrate. She didn't have to explain, but she did. Taking care of my father-in-law consumed most of her time, so she couldn't be away for long. For some reason, I told her we could celebrate right there and then. I had 2 bottles of wine in my truck that were gifts for my promotion. She eagerly agreed and said it was a great idea. We opened one of the bottles and settled into the dining room. to chat. Halfway through the bottle, I started feeling like I should head home soon before it became difficult. She seemed to be enjoying herself and didn't want me to leave. We agreed I'd finish the bottle, then call an Uber to take me home. We sat there for another hour or so, laughing and talking until the bottle was empty. When I checked for an Uber, none were available. She then suggested we open the second bottle while we waited. I agreed and ended up drinking the entire second bottle with her. Right on cue, I got a notification from Uber saying it was 5 minutes away. She walked me outside and we chatted while waiting. When I saw the Uber turning the corner, I gave her a goodbye hug. That hug lasted about 10 seconds, but in my mind, it felt like forever. We both lingered, and I even managed to tell her I had a great night, all while holding her close. Before letting go, I squeezed her one last time and kissed her neck. Honestly, I meant to kiss her cheek, but caught up in the moment and a little buzzed, my lips landed on the spot between her shoulder and ear. I got into the Uber and headed home. My wife was at a work expo that night, so I was alone. The entire ride I kept replaying that hug and kiss in my mind. When I finally got home and got ready for bed, I couldn't stop thinking about her and what had just happened, until I finally drifted off to sleep. A few weeks later, I found myself drinking again, this time to celebrate my best friend's promotion. It was just the guys, no fancy wine or decorum, just a messy night fueled by bourbon. We had rented a limo bus for the evening, so no one had to drive. But of course, there was plenty more booze on board. By the time I got home, I was completely hammered. I don't remember messaging her, but apparently, I told her about planning our next breakfast at a new spot further away, saying how special it would be to get away from them, even just for a bit. I didn't realize how flirty and direct I'd been until the next day when I read the messages. I was mortified. To my surprise, she replied the next afternoon, telling me how excited she was and how amazing the date sounded. Not to gloss over it, but we did end up going on that date, and it was great. Still, there was no flirting or anything beyond our usual breakfast routine. To this day, I'm not sure if she expected more or if she was just happy to try a new place and share the experience with me. I'm probably overthinking it. A few months later, we found ourselves renovating her kitchen, a project that took about 2 weeks. During that time, I once again slipped my hand onto her buns, and she never objected. I'd like to think it wasn't just my imagination, but there were moments when she pressed her chest against me as we looked at patterns. She also backed her hips against me while inspecting the pantry, which was a tight space. I don't mean to sound like a horny teenager, but her body was pressed firmly against me for at least 5 seconds. Small touches like that happened throughout the whole project. I had excited for far too long, and that was the reason she asked me to stop. A few weeks later, feeling a bit braver, I jokingly asked her out for a movie date night. She liked the idea and agreed, which gave me a boost of confidence when she replied with a simple yes to date night. We planned to order dinner from a new Italian restaurant, share a bottle of wine, and watch a new movie. During the evening, she mentioned she had a tension headache. I started rubbing her scalp, ears, and shoulders, all while teasing her about some silly, ancient Chinese remedy I'd just made up. About 20 minutes into the massage, she thanked me, but said she was fine and her tone sounded a little uncomfortable. I worried. Maybe I'd gone too far as I moved lower while a bit buzzed. But then I realized it wasn't discomfort. She was actually charged again. This time, her flushed face and other signs made it pretty clear. She was squirming for a few minutes, and it wasn't until she excused herself to use the bathroom and came back that she seemed more composed. That night, we both ended up drinking a bit more than planned, so she suggested I rest for a while in the guest bedroom before driving home. As she got the room ready, I couldn't help but watch her, feeling this intense desire to hold her, to cuddle her, maybe even more. We hugged and kissed goodnight on the cheek. She went to her room, leaving me alone in the guest room. Lying there, my mind wandered, fantasizing about sneaking into her room and making her mine. I even thought about what excuse I could give if things didn't go as imagined. But in the end, I did nothing and just lay there, frustrated. This flirtation has been going on for 2.5 years now, and I like to believe it's not all in my head, especially when I see that look in her eyes, the way she lingers, wishing I could stay longer after we spend the day together. My dilemma is that I know she wants me as much as I want her, but from our conversations, I don't think she could betray her husband, despite her clear unhappiness with him, and more importantly, she couldn't betray her daughter, even though their relationship is strained and distant. In the end, I think I'll wait to make my move until after her husband passes. I know that probably makes me sound awful, and I'm aware of that, but her daughter and I are heading toward divorce, and since they're practically estranged, I feel I need to find out the answer to this burning question. This is a real story. If anyone has honest advice beyond the usual, just go for it kind of talk, I'm open to hearing it. I also realize many men claim stories like this, but have only imagined it. Yet the way she acts around me can't just be coincidence or my own delusions. Story 6. I was chatting with two girls on an app, and things were going pretty well with both. Then one day, a huge thunderstorm rolled through my area, like serious damage kind of storm. One of them messaged me not long after, saying her house actually got struck by lightning and caught fire. Everyone was safe, thankfully, but she was now dealing with the chaos of finding a new place to live. I told her not to worry about our conversations, that it made total sense for her to step back and focus on real life. No pressure at all. So, during that time, I tried talking to the other girl, but her responses were super short, barely anything. A few days later, she apologized and said it had been a whirlwind because her sister's house had been struck by lightning too, and she was helping her move. At that point, I just kind of sat there like, welp. Story 7. I worked as a Craigslist cash-only companion for a few months, and now I'm considering doing it again. About 2 years ago, I was underemployed and really struggling financially. A friend told me she had responded to a Craigslist ad for a sugar baby arrangement and said it was easy money. One night, feeling bored and curious, I decided to check it out. But most of the sugar baby or daddy posts seemed to require ongoing affairs with dates, conversations, and pretending to be interested in each other, which honestly just felt exhausting to me. However, while browsing the casual encounters section, I noticed many ads looking for quick, discreet meetup. I've always been very open and adventurous, so I figured sending a few emails wouldn't hurt. One day, I decided to follow through, and it turned out to be the easiest $100 I've ever made. It was a very attractive man in a suit who just wanted a blowy in his car. He was done in about 60 seconds, and I walked away $100 richer. Since then, he'd contact me at least once a week, and I'd either give him a blowy or take a lead for $100 or $200 respectively. Over the span of 3 months, I had either blowy or banging with 9 men, though 6 of them were almost weekly repeat clients. I was pretty selective and turned down 4 guys who gave me bad vibes or just didn't seem attractive to me. I always used protection, and the money was unbelievably easy to make. Most of the men hadn't had attentive, satisfying intimacy with an attractive woman in quite some time, so they would be done within minutes. I'm talking about making $200 for just half an hour of my time. Anyway, eventually I landed a full-time job and started dating someone, so I stopped with the random meetups. But now that I'm single again, I've been thinking about testing the waters. I know this technically makes a slut, but honestly, I'm not sure I care. There's something strangely empowering about it, I think. Story 8. Back when I was doing a year-long internship at a different company, I ended up getting involved with my boss. She was older than me, never married, but had built a really impressive career. Confident, sharp, well-respected. The kind of person who walks into a room and instantly has everyone's attention. I lived just a few blocks from her place. Totally by coincidence. It started off innocently enough. She'd offer me a lift home after work here and there. Then one evening she suggested we grab a coffee on the way. That turned into a bit of a routine. Coffee turned into long conversations. And not long after, it turned into us sleeping together. It was never anything romantic. We didn't go on dates or talk about what this was. It was just this mutual, unspoken arrangement. No strings, no drama. We both kept it low-key and professional around the office. And outside of work, well, let's just say we got along very well. No regrets. Hands down the best internship I've ever had. Story 9. Okay, this is something I don't usually share, but here goes. I lost my V-card at an overnight church retreat, with the pastor's daughter, no less. We were about the same age and had been kind of flirting quietly for a while. The weekend was full of the usual stuff. Group prayers, trust exercises, awkward singing. But late that night, when everyone else was either asleep or pretending to be, things just happened. It wasn't planned or anything, just one of those spontaneous moments where logic goes out the window. At the time, it didn't feel wrong. It felt exciting, A little reckless, but it was mutual. Here's the kicker. Her older brother found out the same night. I don't know how, maybe someone saw us sneak off, or maybe she told someone she trusted who couldn't keep quiet. Either way, by Monday, the whole school had heard. By lunchtime, strangers and younger students alike would pass me in the hall, wide-eyed, whispering, in a church. That little reputation stuck around for a while. I still think about her sometimes. Story 10. One time, my boss made me a surprising offer. She said I could have a one-time only chance to fulfill any fantasy I had involving a woman. She even joked that if anything came of it, like a pregnancy, she'd just say it was her husband's. The whole situation was wild, but the only reason she brought it up was because I was heading out that night for drinks with a coworker who supposedly had a bit of a reputation and a long-standing rivalry with my boss. Definitely one of the more unexpected moments in my career. We weren't going out for drinks because I was looking to hook up. We were going out because my grandmother had passed earlier that week, and it was the first real chance I had to raise a glass in her honor. I politely declined both offers. There was no way any of it would have been worth getting caught up in all that drama. Story 11. One morning I ate a bowl of blueberries for breakfast. Later that day I was coming back to my apartment after walking my dog and had to fart. Nobody was around, so I let it rip, and a whole blueberry came out, rolled out of my shorts and onto the ground. My dog scarfed it down while I sat there dumbfounded that I had just farted out a blueberry. Story 12. One time at a sleepover in my cousin's she shed, her mom gave us a porcelain pitcher to use during the night, so we wouldn't have to go outside to pee. In the middle of the night, I woke up needing to go, and in my half-asleep state, I tried to squat over the pitcher in the dark. I couldn't really see what I was doing, and somehow I accidentally sat on the spout end. Let's just say it ended up in a very unfortunate spot. When I stood up, the whole thing slipped, crashed to the floor, and shattered. Definitely one of the more chaotic moments of my childhood. Story 13. I used to be active in the swinger scene and met a woman through an app. She was probably in her mid-40s. We'd get together at her place now and then, casually hooking up. Eventually, I settled down and got married. So those adventures came to an end. Years later, after my divorce, I found myself back in the dating scene. I started chatting with a woman in her early 20s, and we hit it off. When I went over to her place, I had a strange sense of déjà vu, but I brushed it off, figured I was just overthinking it. After we spent some time together and banged, I started noticing some familiar photos around her home. That's when I saw pictures of her and the woman I had been banging years ago. Turns out they were mother and daughter, which added up because they both had the same technique while giving blowy. Story 14. Found out about a pastor's infidelity through some gossip shared by my openly gay roommate. This happened about 8 years ago. I was gaming in a basement apartment I shared with two friends from university. One was openly gay, the other straight. The gay guy, let's call him James, was in an open relationship with his boyfriend Trevor. Trevor was definitely the more outgoing one and would often go on Grindr dates. Afterwards, he and James would hang out and share all the juicy details about the dates. One day, I got curious and asked what they were talking about while James was on a phone call with Trevor. James mentioned that Trevor's recent date had been weird, not bad, not good, just strange. The date had ended with Trevor and the other guy banging, but afterward, the other man couldn't keep his mouth shut. That's when Trevor found out the guy was a married pastor from an area I happened to know well. That definitely caught my attention. I asked James for more details, and he described the pastor as an older, balding ginger who wore glasses. That description set off alarm bells for me. I asked if Trevor knew his name. He did, just the first name and the initial of the last, since the last name was unusual and Trevor didn't remember it fully. I quickly filled in the blank because I actually knew the pastor, not closely, but enough to put the pieces together. Never shared that with others. Didn't quite feel right to share that knowledge. Story 15. I ended up being intimate with my friend's crush while he was asleep right beside me. Me and a group of friends had planned to spend the night at one of our friends' houses after our school's homecoming. For some of us, it was a chance to make a move, but for me, it was mostly just an opportunity to hang out and chill with some of my closest friends, both guys and girls, all 18. A bit of background, I've been friends with Michael for over a year, and we'd gotten closer over the past few months. Lately, we started spending more time with another group, mostly girls, including Jessica. After a few trips to the lake and just hanging out, some of my friends and I started noticing that Michael and Jessica were acting really flirtatious around each other. At first, I didn't think much of it. Jessica's the kind of person who flirts with pretty much any guy she meets. For the dance, we managed to sneak in some alcohol, and by the time it ended, most of us were pretty tipsy and ready to keep the night going. A couple of our sober friends drove us to the house where we were staying, and there, most of us smoked and had some edibles. Later, we headed down to the basement, where Michael and Jessica's flirtatious behavior didn't slow down, something none of us found surprising. At the same time, I started noticing Jessica giving me some playful, almost teasing looks. At first, I thought maybe I was imagining things since I was pretty out of it, but my eyes weren't fooling me. She was definitely glancing at me promiscuously. We played a few card games, but by that point, I was barely keeping it together. Later, I heard that Michael and Jessica had basically been sitting all over each other during the game. Then one of my friends had the idea to smoke a backwood out in the backyard. To avoid the smell sticking to our clothes, we all took our shirts off and stayed that way for the rest of the night. Everyone, including Jessica, joined in on the backwood. After that, one friend tried to shotgun a beer in the bathroom, but ended up spilling it everywhere. Once we finished off another case of Coors, I crashed on the bed with two friends to my left. The rest of the group, Michael included, were spread out sleeping on the floor around the bed. After about 5 minutes of lying in bed watching TikToks, Jessica snuggled up close to my right side. About 20 minutes later, people started falling asleep, and it seemed like it was just the two of us still awake. Since the others on the bed had taken all the blankets, Jessica and I cuddled to keep warm. What happened next is something I never thought I'd share, but here I am, though I plan to keep this between us. Unbeknownst to the others, Jessica and I started making out quietly. Everyone else appeared to be asleep, so we kept going, careful not to wake anyone. When I tried to unclasp her bra, she was lying on her back and I was a bit cramped, so she helped herself, and soon I found myself holding her in my hands, taking in every curve. One thing led to another, and we ended up spending the night together, right there in the bed, surrounded by everyone else. Next morning, I was one of the last to wake up, still feeling pretty out of it, probably from the edibles. At first, I thought the whole thing with Jessica had been a dream. It felt so unlike me to even imagine being with someone my friend was clearly interested in, so I convinced myself it was just some strange, messed-up dream. I quietly gathered my things and had a friend drive me home without saying a word to anyone. Fast forward to the next weekend. One night, while hanging out with the whole group, Jessica came up to me and whispered, "Do you remember anything from last weekend?" Fuck. That was no dream. In that moment it hit me. Everything I thought was a dream actually happened. I'm screwed. I had steamy, passionate moments with my friend's crush, and she remembers it all. Panic set in. I shook my head and said, "What are you talking about?" Surprisingly, she looked a little disappointed. For the rest of the night, she kept making subtle moves toward me, but now, fully sober, I didn't respond. It's been about 3 weeks since the dance, and I haven't told a soul. Jessica doesn't think I'm aware. And aside from a few stolen glances, I'm pretty sure she thinks she's in the clear. But now Jessica and Michael are officially dating. I heard it from a friend and tried to play it cool, like it didn't surprise me because honestly, the signs were there all along. The crazy part? Jessica and I hooked up just a month ago. Even worse, I found out they started seeing each other just a week after we did, which means Michael got the leftovers fresh from the source. Now I'm stuck. Do I tell Michael what happened, or do I keep quiet and pretend none of it ever took place? I really don't want to mess up the friend group, but I'm not sure what the right move is. Story 16. I lost my V-card in my backyard, in broad daylight, outside of the car. I haven't told anyone this story before, but here it goes. Changing a few small details, so the guy I lost my V-card to doesn't ever find this story. I stayed a virgin well into my 20s. Growing up religious, I believed waiting until marriage would somehow make me a better person. Being a virgin became part of my identity. But as I got older, I kept turning down physical relations, even though curiosity was growing. I started feeling ashamed. Everyone around me seemed to have moved on, some even getting married. It felt like a biological clock was ticking inside my head, though I'm not sure how else to explain it. Then I found out a longtime guy friend was attracted to me, and with my birthday coming up, I thought, do I really want this year to end with me still a virgin? This is getting ridiculous. I opened up to my friend about everything and directly asked if he would be willing to take my V card so I wouldn't feel like such an outcast anymore. He agreed to help me out. Things got a bit explicit after that, but to keep this from getting too graphic, I'll keep it brief. We ended up doing it before even making it inside the house. I basically jumped him. We had planned to hang out for a couple of hours before anything happened, but as soon as we were around the back of the house, I started kissing him and things just escalated. We were out in the open, around noon, where any neighbor could have seen us. At the time, I didn't even think about how reckless it was. We didn't use protection either. I never imagined losing my V card like that. I did have some regrets for a while, but I've since come to terms with it. The bright side? I didn't get caught or become pregnant, so that's a plus. Story 17. I slept with my ex-girlfriend's mom. My girlfriend and I broke up a few months ago. After I discovered she'd been meeting up with multiple guys from Tinder, I was hurt and upset, but our breakup was civil, no yelling, arguing, or name-calling. About a week after we split, I noticed a $450 charge on my debit card from Amazon. I knew it had to be her since I rarely use Amazon, and my card info was saved on her laptop from when I ordered a movie for us to watch a few weeks before we broke up. I'm currently in school and pretty broke, so that charge put me in a serious financial bind, right at the end of the month when rent was due. I was really upset and feeling spiteful, so I messaged her mom on Facebook to start some small talk. Her mom is a total free spirit, and I'd caught her several times checking me out and finding excuses to touch me whenever we went over for dinner. Honestly, I realized she wanted to do it with me the very first time we met. Anyway, while we were messaging on Facebook, she started dropping some pretty obvious flirty hints, and I found myself flirting back. We decided to meet up for coffee to talk about the breakup and just catch up. The next day when we met, she casually mentioned that no one would be home for about 4 hours. I knew exactly what she was implying. When we got to her place, as soon as the garage door closed, things quickly escalated. We ended up being intimate all over the house, on her husband's workbench, in the garage, in the kitchen, and finally in her bedroom. Afterwards, I felt really awful. My ex-girlfriend's mom isn't exactly someone I'm attracted to. She's had 6 kids, smokes and drinks heavily, and is quite overweight. Now she messages me almost every week, asking me to come over or meet her during her lunch break. I haven't replied since that day. I'm ashamed of what happened and wish I could take it back. I thought it would help me move on from the breakup, but instead it just made me more anxious and left me feeling even worse. Story 18. I self-help guys solo off on Omegle. A bit of background: I'm a girl with a pretty nice body, though I don't really get much attention in real life, and I'm still a virgin. I'm no stranger to Omegle. I usually just hop on to chat or mess around by intentionally looking goofy, but a few days ago I was really bored and hadn't had a solo session in a while, so I was feeling pretty charged. Normally, seeing guys dong on Omegle doesn't do anything for me, but I guess the mix of my mood, some abs I saw, and the overall vibe sparked something in me. Needless to say, when I first started camming wearing just shorts and a bra, no face shown, I was definitely fishing for compliments. Like I mentioned, I'm a virgin and hadn't really received much praise for my more intimate features before. The idea of giving guys so much happiness, even without actual intimacy, actually got me pretty excited. The first guy was pretty easy. I don't even remember taking off my inners. I just gave a little push with my chest, and he was done. As I helped more guys, their requests started getting bolder. At first, it was all about helping the guys get to the finish line. But then I came across a certain type of Scandinavian, and I just couldn't resist. I guess I have a thing for this. His pale skin and the soft natural light made it clear I'd found exactly the kind of Scandinavian I wanted to be with. My ovaries were practically on fire when he had to move to his bedroom to get things going. If I wasn't already excited by his heritage, I definitely was once I realized I'd made him go from softy to stiffy in seconds. This was the first time I really got what I wanted out of the whole exchange. Of course, it ended with him having a big O, and I felt an even deeper satisfaction knowing I'd made this dearly beloved Scandinavian lose control. In the end, I realize how wrong this all feels and how much of a guilty pleasure it's become. I'm genuinely scared it might turn into a habit, and that somehow my name could get linked to it. Especially with the current Ask Reddit thread about girls posting on GW, I can shake the feeling that something's off about getting excited by strangers I don't even know. Story 19. After my recent divorce, I wasn't in the mood to celebrate the 4th of July, especially since it would have been my 25th wedding anniversary, so I politely declined my neighbor's big blowout party. That afternoon, a mutual acquaintance, a hot, young, curvy dancer type, knocked on my door holding a plate of food. She said, "I'll trade you this BBQ for some bug spray. I know you've got some to protect your cappuccino skin." Sure. I grabbed the can of Deep Woods off I swear by and stepped out onto the porch to eat. I nearly choked when I noticed she wasn't wearing anything under her sundress while spraying the bug spray. She slammed the can on the table, asked if I was ready for dessert, and before I could answer, she sat right down on my lap. The battle inside me was intense. My body screaming, "Hell yeah, you hit the jackpot," while my brain warned, "She's as young as your daughter." Yet, as she whispered that she likes older men and kept up her play, I couldn't deny the pull. "I know what I want," she declared, standing up and tossing her sundress onto the table. Then she grabbed her purse and handed me her driver's license. "Here's your proof that I'm an adult. Can I have my seat back now?" Turns out she was only 6 months older than my daughter, who is also an adult. That's how the most incredible 10-month situationship began. Today, she's hopefully celebrating her first Mother's Day with someone else. Bless them both. Story 20. I cheated on my fiancée because I was struggling with resentment over her romantic history. I love my fiancée more deeply than I've ever loved anyone before. We live together and are planning to get married next summer. On paper, we're the perfect couple. We're best friends and incredible together. She's by far the best woman I've ever been with, so loving, sweet, and caring towards me. Honestly, she feels perfect. Sometimes I wonder if I even deserve her. When we first started dating, I asked her about her past partners, and she gave me a long list, 16 guys before we got together, many of them one-night stands or friends with benefits. I can't even put into words how angry, disgusted, and jealous I felt. It sickens me to imagine some random guy having been that close to her. I feel insecure and foolish for being the one who's marrying someone else's former hookup. Seeing guys who know her so intimately really gets to me. More than anything, I hate feeling like I've experienced less than she has. I told her how it made me feel, and she shared how embarrassed she was about her past. She said she isn't that person anymore, and that she hated herself for being so easy back then. She reassured me that she loves me and wishes she had never been with any of those other guys. So I let it go and try not to bring it up anymore. But I do something even worse to cope. I don't sleep with other women. That feels too wrong and risky with Sid D's, but I do cheat on her in other ways. Since we got together back in 2006, I've pursued a lot of other girls. I flirt, take them out on dates, kiss them, everything except actually sleeping together. I crave that feeling of knowing I could have been with them. I've done this probably around 20 times and never got caught. In a way, it helped me let go of some of the anger I felt toward my fiancé, realizing I was doing things just as bad. I do feel guilty because it's unfair to my fiancé. I wish I could forgive her, or just not care about her past. But I can't, and I'm not even done with this yet. I've been talking to this 19-year-old and we're planning to go out tomorrow night. Story 21. I once slept with a woman who was getting married in just a month. She was the one who initiated everything. She was marrying someone wealthy while I was still in college. Later, I ended up with a married woman whose culture strictly forbids marrying outside their community. It was a tragic situation. I also slept with another woman from a culture that frowned upon relationships outside their circle. Another sad story. Then there was an older woman who taught me so much in bed. She was truly incredible and did things no one else could match. After that, I slept with a friend's girlfriend. She pursued me and insisted, and I felt terrible about it. They ended up breaking up a few months later without my friend knowing. I know I was horrible back then, but I don't do that anymore. I found the right person and now we're happily married. Story 22. About 5 years ago, I was at a party with some coworkers. My boss at the time was a woman around my age. Both of us were about 35 back then. She came to the party with her younger sister and I immediately hit it off with the sister. We talked all night, had a few drinks. shared a kiss, and ended up going back to my place. The next morning, I woke up to find her asleep next to me, with our clothes scattered all over my bedroom. When I went to the bathroom, I got a call from an unknown number. It was my boss' sister, nervously asking if I'd seen her sister. Apparently, she had left the party without telling anyone. Yep, the woman in my bed was my boss. She was still asleep when I realized, and you can imagine how embarrassed she was when I had to wake her up. The weird part? I knew what we had done. I found a used rubber in my bathroom, but neither of us remembered anything from the night before. We agreed never to talk about it to anyone. Last year, she transferred to a different position within the same company. She's no longer my boss, but still sits nearby in the same office. I got married 4 years ago and she was invited to the wedding. We both just act like it never happened. And yes, she's definitely a good-looking woman. Story 23. Back in 2002, my roommate and coworker in a quirky sales job had his girlfriend move in with us. On about the third night, she brought a friend over. We all got drunk and I ended up sleeping with her friend. She later started working with us, and for about 6 months, we regularly had drunken meetups for banging. One Friday night, I arrived home late with a couple of 8-balls in my pocket, and the roommates were throwing a party. As I walked in through the glass patio doors, I noticed a girl I'd never met before leaning over a couch, her back facing the door, getting cozy with the friend I'd been regularly sleeping with. She glanced over her shoulder at me, lifted her skirt, and revealed a block print tattoo across the backs of her thighs that read "F-U." She was dressed in lingerie, and honestly, it was an unforgettable sight. I walked in and asked, "Is that an offer?" She smiled and said yes. Since she was really petite, I just picked her up and carried her to my bedroom. I said, "If you're serious, this could be fun." And she replied, "Yeah, I'm totally serious." We ended up doing it within 2 minutes of meeting. We did our thing, then headed back to the front room where I started chatting with this girl who was pressed up right next to me. I'm pretty sure the whole party heard us. She was loud. The girl I was regularly seeing came and sat on my other side, did a fat line with me, and said, "I'm glad you banged my cousin." After the party wound down, I watched them eat each other's pie before we took turns with each other until we all collapsed in a sweaty pile on my bed. Bethany and cousin, if you're out there, I still remember you. Story 24. I slept with my engaged friend, and it blew up in a way I did not expect. This requires some more context because this is such an insane situation I've gotten myself into. I feel like someone is using a monkey paw on me where something positive will happen to me with really bizarre caveats. So I'm a 25-year-old guy and I have a friend, let's call her Anna, who's also 25. We've known each other since middle school but really got close in high school. Fun fact, we actually share the same birthday. Back in sophomore year of high school, I had a huge crush on her. I asked her out 3 times and got rejected each time. The first rejection should have been a clear sign, but I was stubborn and tried 2 more times. Somehow I was able to handle all 3 no's without it ruining our friendship, so things worked out. Fast forward a few years, we both went to colleges about 15 minutes apart and hung out pretty regularly. After graduation, we ended up living in the same city, so we still see each other pretty often. About a year and a half ago, Anna started dating this guy, Brandon, and soon the 3 of us were hanging out all the time. I didn't really mind. Brandon gave off a weird vibe, but he was friendly to me, and I never felt like a third wheel or that there was any hostility. After a while, they told me they were engaged, though it was one of those engagements with no set wedding date in sight. The 3 of us, and sometimes others, continued to hang out regularly. Then one New Year's Eve in January, Anna and I went out alone, and I noticed she seemed to be flirting with guys at the bars. It struck me as odd, but I told myself I was probably overthinking it. We hung out again about a week later, and that's when Anna told me Brandon had asked to open their relationship, mostly so he could date another girl. She said she had reluctantly agreed to it. For the next few weeks, Anna and I hung out without her fiancé. I started noticing she seemed to be flirting with me, but I brushed it off. She was engaged, and she had rejected me before, so I figured I was reading too much into it. One day, she was over at my apartment with my roommate, and I mentioned I finally got the posters I said ordered. She offered to help me hang them up. I said, "Nah, it's fine," but she insisted. We went into my room, she shut the door behind us, and then bluntly asked, "Wanna bang?" I asked if she was serious, and she said yes. When I asked why, She explained that since they had an open relationship, she figured she might as well take advantage of it but preferred to do it with someone she trusted. So we went for it. It was a bit awkward at first, but ultimately it was good enough that we kept it going. It turned into a pretty steady friends with benefits arrangement for a while, and throughout neither of us gave any sign of developing feelings for the other. Anyway, all this time she had told him she was seeing someone else, and he didn't seem to care, but this past weekend was the first time she told him that the other guy was me, and he completely lost it. He accused her of having an affair before they even opened their relationship and claimed she was emotionally cheating on him, among other things. Now I'm roped into the middle of this, and I feel like I should have seen this becoming messy, but I didn't expect it to go like this. Story 25. I'm a 42-year-old married woman, and I've had a sugar daddy for the past 3 years. I've been married for nearly 20 years, and I truly love my husband. He means everything to me. He was the first and only man I've ever been with. I used to work as a secretary at an automotive dealership, but about 4 years ago the dealership closed down and I lost my job. My husband and I decided it was actually a blessing in disguise for me to stay home with our only child and take on the role of a soccer mom. It was a financial challenge, but we made sacrifices to ensure our child didn't feel any impact. We had a regular customer at the dealership. I'll call him Mr. Ford. He was a handsome man, about 20 years older than me. From the moment I started working there, he made it clear how attractive and desirable he thought I was. I mostly shrugged it off since many women at the dealership got hit on, and I wasn't the only one, but I was the only one Mr. Ford truly had his eyes on. I told my husband about him from the very beginning. After I was laid off, Mr. Ford kept reaching out to me constantly for months. He just wouldn't stop. Eventually I gave in and replied. We chatted a few times, and it was nice to have someone to talk to. At first our conversations were friendly, but soon he started flirting again, though nothing too serious. When he learned we were struggling financially during our occasional chats, despite calling or texting me every day, he offered to help. He said he could pay me a monthly amount if I could assist him too. He wanted me to model for him and have conversations, and in return he'd compensate me. I won't get into all the details or the internal struggle I went through, but after a few weeks I finally agreed. We settled on a set amount. He pays me up front, and each month I have to do a certain number of live modeling shows for him while my child is at school. Then I have a set number of chat sessions, usually on the phone, where we talk mostly about intimacy, my intimate life and fantasies. I've made a good amount, which I've been saving in a separate account. I still haven't figured out how to explain the source of the money to my husband. Over the years I've used some of it to cover things like car repairs and house maintenance, telling him it came from relatives. He's currently up for a big promotion, and if he gets it, our financial situation will improve. At that point, I think I'll need to stop because this is starting to feel risky. Update, just to be clear, I haven't slept with Mr. Ford. Some people have asked or assumed, but that hasn't happened. Story 26. I had revenge bang with my ex to get back at his new girlfriend, the one he cheated on me with. To keep it short, my boyfriend of 9 years and I broke up a few weeks ago. I found out he was telling his friends we were just roommates, so he could try to meet up with another girl. Recently, I learned they're now officially dating. Before I knew the full story, I warned her by telling her he was cheating on me. She read my message and then blocked me. The fact that she knew what he did and still chose to be with him makes my blood boil. Usually, I don't blame the other woman when a guy cheats, but she knew the truth and went ahead anyway. I wanted her to feel the same pain I felt. At this point, I don't even want him back. I know our relationship had already gone bad and should have ended a long time ago. But that doesn't make it any less painful or devastating. He was the first guy I'd ever been with, both physically and emotionally, and I was the same for him. So I get that he might want to explore other things. I just always wished he'd be honest and tell me if he didn't want to be with me, instead of keeping me around while messing around behind my back. Putting that aside, fast forward to now, I slept with someone else last night. It was my first time with anyone besides my exes. Honestly, it was just me. Today, my ex and I ended up texting. He said he missed the cats and wanted to come see them. We also talked about what it's like sleeping with new people and both agreed that what we had was better. He decided he was going to come over, and I said okay. In that moment, I got really excited, very excited. I knew what this meant. He was probably feeling guilty and crappy about everything, and that he'd likely tell me he missed me. Then a thought hit me. I can go after the other girl, but I can still get even and make her feel the same pain I'm feeling. I told myself I wouldn't be the one to start anything, but if it happened, I wouldn't say no to being with him. It would have to be his choice, his move. I'm single. I can do what I want. When he came over, we talked about how things are, how his new girlfriend is, and all that. He asked about what I'd been up to, who I'd been with, etc. Then, just like I thought, he opened up about missing me, feeling unsure if he did the right thing, but not wanting to mess up his new relationships. I told him I actually thought about him last night and said, I was half tempted to text you to say we should hook up because that was awful. He said he probably wouldn't have said no. This is actually happening. I told him he could sit next to me on the couch, and he did. He touched me, started kissing me, and we ended up doing it right there on my couch. Afterward, he went to clean up while I took pictures. His clothes scattered on my floor, his distinctive phone case, and his red watch. I even snapped a photo of him sitting in my chair fully dressed to prove it was him. I also have a text from him saying he trusts me to keep what happened between us a secret. I've got all the proof I need to potentially ruin his life and give that girl a big B. I don't regret sleeping with him, and I'm honestly loving the fact that I finally got to even the score with her. The only thing that's bothering me is that this goes against my moral code, especially not telling the girlfriend when I know her boyfriend cheated and hooking up with someone who's in a relationship. But honestly, she didn't care when it was me, so screw her. That said, I still feel guilty for not saying anything yet. Part of me wants to throw it in her face because it makes me feel better knowing it was him, not me. It shows she's with a crappy person who would cheat on any girlfriend. She deserves to know what happens when you date someone like that. She knows exactly what he did to me. He cheated on me with her, so I let him cheat on her with me. I got great bang my chance for revenge, confirmation that my ex is truly terrible, and zero regrets. Plus, I hold the power to hurt them both if I ever choose to. Honestly, I'm feeling pretty good about it all. Karma is a just woman. Update. I reached out to a friend of his girlfriend since I couldn't get in touch with her directly. I explained everything, sent all the screenshots, pictures of him at my place, and all the proof I had. The friend contacted the girlfriend, but after that she blocked me too. I'm not sure what happened after. I told my ex that I wasn't going to lie for him. He made the choice to come over to sit next to me, to start touching and kissing me. I'm guilty of not saying no, and of making sure there was proof this happened. If she decides to stay with him now, that's on her. We're even, and I got the closure I needed, plus proof of the kind of guy he really is. Then he told me, I'm going to off myself. Just a heads up. You took everything now. I'm not joking. I'm going out to his car to take all my meds. Screw you. This is your fault. You just took everything. Friends he lives with will find out. I won't have friends. No one. I hope you see me on the news. It terrified me. He's self-harmed before. But this was different. He said things like this before, but never with details or mentioning that I'd see him on the news. I called 911 and gave them all the info I had, even though I didn't know exactly where he was or the addresses of his girlfriend or friends. They're doing what they can. Now, I think he was trying to make me feel guilty rather than actually go through with it. He even took the time to block me on Facebook. I haven't heard anything from the police since. I just hope he's okay, that his friends forgive him, and maybe his girlfriend understands. I'm washing my hands of it all now. I got the closure I needed, and I can finally move on without any doubts. Story 27. Some bad weather messed up a cruise ship's docking, so they had to drop passengers and their luggage in 2 different spots. My boss comes up to me and says they need someone to collect all the luggage and bring it to the terminal. She points toward the parking lot and asks, "You ever driven something like that?" I glance over, see what looks like a ute, and say, "Yeah, heaps of times." She tosses me the keys. I start walking toward the vehicle I thought she meant, then realize she was pointing to a massive truck that clearly needed a C-class license. We're talking 4.5 tons. I've never driven anything bigger than a Hilux, but I just shrugged and thought, screw it. Honestly, it was kind of fun, and the passengers got their bags back, so I guess that's a win. Story 28. I started working as a security guard at a retail store, where the manager was a girl about a year or two younger than me, very beautiful. It was obvious everyone in the store was attracted to her, but I noticed her from day one and wanted to try flirting. That flirtation ended up being more successful than I expected, but for some reason, despite usually having a good read on things, I couldn't figure out why she was giving mixed signals. She'd flirt with me a lot, but whenever I invited her out for a drink after work, she was always busy. Then she told me she had a boyfriend. To cut to the chase, we kept flirting, and eventually she admitted she had developed some feelings for me. Over the next couple of months, I found myself falling for her too. We slept together a couple of times. One night, after staying late at work, I helped her move some heavy stock, and we ended up sleeping together. She got home really late. In the early hours of the next morning, she texted me, saying we needed to talk ASAP. The very next morning, she sat me down on a park bench and told me that when she got home from our last time together, her boyfriend had proposed. With tears in her eyes, I hugged her and told her it would be okay, that we'd get through this. Then she showed me the ring and told me she had said yes. By that point, I was completely in love with her. I told her I just wanted her to be happy and that I'd leave her alone if she was sure about the engagement. We didn't speak for a few weeks. When I saw her again, it was at a bar, and she tried to get me to take her home. That's when it finally became clear she was confused and just wanted an escape from reality, and she found that escape with me. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.